following is a sponsored message from Interfaith Community Services. Voice of San Diego is a nonprofit, and a majority of our budget comes from listeners and readers like you. But we also depend on revenue from grants and advertisers to maintain independence and produce more of the hard-hitting journalism you expect from us. Interfaith Community Services is North San Diego County's largest provider of social services. With programs ranging from food, housing, employment, youth services, addiction recovery, and more, Interfaith serves over 17,000 of their neighbors in need each year. Headquartered in Escondido, their mission is to help people help themselves. And to do that, they need your support. Visit www.interfaithservices.org to learn more.
Thanks for joining us on the Voice of San Diego podcast. I am Scott Lewis, the editor-in-chief here at Voice. I am joined, as always, by assistant editor Andrew Keats.
My man.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Back from vacay.
Yeah.
Sarah Libby is our managing editor. Hello, Sarah.
Hello.
You are not back from vacay.
I'm not.
But this week, I am still buzzing. We're going to start this show with our heroes of the week. The sun shone for once. The birds chirped. San Diego was its resplendent self. The world was talking about us, and it was for something good. It was this most shocking news that I could imagine. Manny Machado signed with the San Diego Padres, and I think it might be the best thing to happen to San Diego in 20 years, which is a low bar. Low bar. Best surprising thing to happen.
Yeah. Well, what else would it be?
I don't know. Nothing. Well, there was surprise, like waking up one day and finding out that a bunch of women had accused the mayor of sexual harassment, for example. That was a surprise. Wasn't a good surprise, right?
No.
Lots of surprises.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's great news because Manny Machado is awesome, and they're going to be a better baseball team now because they got a guy who's really good at that sport.
Now, I recognize not everybody's a baseball fan. You're represented on the show by Sarah Libby.
Hello.
She really dislikes baseball.
It's not that I dislike baseball. I just don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys want to talk about the indoor track nationals that are happening this weekend, I'm here.
Yeah.
I think you dislike it. You really taunt me for caring a lot.
No, I think I'm happy for you guys.
Thank you.
I care about football. I care about track, and
Oh, you're certainly a jock. That no one would question that. You just seem not to like baseball.
I just don't care.
It's
I
fine.
don't care.
Okay.
I think I get back to this, but it was just thrilling to be surprised.
Yeah.
It was such a surprise.
Well,
like San Diego doesn't do this.
Well, so there were a lot of people asking me if I feel bad because I've been saying for the last month that this wouldn't happen.
Right.
And I don't even a little. I felt no remorse. I wouldn't have wanted to experience it any other way.
You got to protect yourself.
Yeah, this was the only way to go through it. First of all, I didn't run any complicated algorithm to come to that conclusion. It just they had never done anything like this. And so I thought, well, then they probably aren't gonna.
Yeah.
And then I just moved on with my life and ignored it.
I came to you like 3 months ago. I'm like, could this happen? You said no. And I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And I just went about my life. And then that day happens. I text my friend, OMG, and he writes back, what? And I said, OMG. And he writes back, I'm on a plane, tell me. and I said, ESPN's reporting that Manny Machado went to the Padres. And he goes, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
And then they said the MLB just tweeted it. And then the MLB deleted their tweet. So I'm like, oh, this is going to go bad.
Yeah.
But
My favorite part of this was like that the biggest actually of the day was people saying, well, of course he went to San Diego. San Diego's such like a fantastic place.
Yeah.
What other city would you want to spend your life in? And it was just like so bizarre seeing like all these East Coast types saying like, well, of course San Diego's the greatest city in the known universe and would attract a man like this. And I was like,
never mind that it's never happened.
It's never happened. Have you guys ever been here? Seems like
lost
no.
an entire team.
Yeah. So kudos to the ownership and to Mr. Machado for making this happen. It gives Padres fans like us a chance to actually picture them being good someday. Might not happen. There's variants. There's all kinds of things. But thank you for giving a little spark of life to the city that wasn't a shocking bad thing to happen. All right. This week, we're going to talk to Alex Pruchet. He's coming in the studio. He's the host of Politically Speaking on NBC San Diego. He succeeded Gene Cubison in that role, and he's become a friend of Voice San Diego. We'd love to have him in, get to know him a little bit. And he's going to do a little game with us, sort of outlining the future political races that we're going to be watching, so stay tuned for that. But first, our news of the week.
NBC7 investigates, and our media partner, Voice of San Diego, are investigating claims that immigration agents are getting information about undocumented drivers from the DMV. Now, some are saying a law designed to help undocumented immigrants is being used against them.
So in 2013, there was a law that the state of California passed that made it legal for unauthorized immigrants in California to get driver's license. The idea was to help them come out of the shadows, get insurance, keep the roads safe. And they passed it, but Voice of San Diego reporter Maya Srikrishnan revealed this week that federal immigration agents have found access to the DMV database with these immigrants' information. So they don't have to say that they've used the information. They don't have to keep track of what they've done, but it seems clear that they're getting in there.
Yeah, so they have kind of like a roundabout access. They don't like go in directly through the DMV database, but all these databases are kind of connected, and they are able to go in there. And so that's allowed ICE to come back and say, well, we don't directly access the DMV databases, but they certainly don't like dispute the fact that they're in there. And so Maya and NBC found several cases in which ICE went to arrest immigrants, people who had no criminal history, and all the immigrants say that they had a copy of their driver's license with them and information that they had given to the DMV. So it seemed very clear to them that the federal agents were accessing this information, which of course has troubled, the person who wrote the law, who's now a county supervisor in Monterey, I believe, who said that he has reached out to Governor Newsom to see if there's anything that they can do about this.
One of the things this brought into relief for me was that, again, more proof that the idea of a sanctuary state is ludicrous, especially when all of these federal and local criminal or law enforcement organizations share so much in the way of database and cyber information and communication systems that the idea that you can somehow keep the law enforcement completely separate at the state level is just impossible.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be. I mean, you mentioned it in your introduction, but the entire idea was to be honest about the fact that there are people here without citizenship, and that it would be better for everyone, for law enforcement as agencies, for documented residents, for undocumented residents. It would be better for everybody to at least allow them to have some of these basic components of life here, like licenses that allow them to
be members of society.
Be members of society. And once you can't trust that, once it becomes clear that that information can't live in a silo, or at least if maybe there's a way we are unwilling to explore it, that you just circle back to the beginning of the question, which is people say, well, then I guess I have no choice but to live largely in secret.
Right. So that'll be an issue. As you said, his name is Luis Alejo, right? He passed that law. And then Lorena Gonzalez at the assembly level as well said she's going to try to do something about it. So watch that. That'll probably be discussed. All right, this week we caused a little bit of a stir. We filed a suit against San Diego State University for withholding public records that we think will reveal a little bit more about how they plan to expand their campus into Mission Valley. There was some confusion about this. I was on the radio this morning, and they're like, why are you suing to stop the San Diego State expansion into Mission Valley?
Oh, boy.
And I was like, whoa. No, I hope they wish them all the success in the world. To be clear, we want records. In particular, when Ry Rivard asked them to help him understand how they were going to pay for the Mission Valley project that they have, they said to him, well, we have all of these people who've worked for us. Here's one of them. and he comes on and he says, look, we've done all these financial projections. This is how it works. And he says, oh, can I have those financial projections? And that's sort of the origin of this discussion, right?
Yeah.
And so there's basically that, a lot of contracts they put out, and we want those documents. They say they're not public. We say they are. And so we need a court to settle that. That's the dispute at hand.
Yeah, there's a recurring issue here with people not quite understanding the records law, and that to get records that people say are not public, we have no recourse but this. And yes, that it is not in any way an attempt to stop the development of SDSU West or any other project that when we intervene on to get records for.
Yeah, and we're not doing this on behalf of Soccer City. Soccer City is dead, as dead as it gets.
Well, it's worth putting a finer point on that like Soccer City is dead. Forget about that. That's over. And the SDSU West thing is very much just beginning.
Just beginning.
Maybe a virtue. The ballot measure included very little specificity. This is the moment at which we can start learning about what the plans are for that project and start making sure that there are no reverberations or that it's what the public would want, etc. That wasn't built into the ballot measure. We're trying to get that information now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the thing that drove home what I believe is, San Diego State's weak position that they don't owe us these records is that they initially told us, you can have nothing. We're not going to give you these documents. And it was only once we threatened a lawsuit that they said, well, here's some of them. Here's a few of them that you're seeking, and the rest we're not going to give up. And so that seemed to be like a very point blank admission that they were withholding some of those records, illegally. And so we believe that there are even more that they're continuing to withhold that they should give up.
Now, at the heart, let me put this out. So at the heart of this issue is this first phase of development where they have to kind of clean up the land, level it, and then build a stadium. And that could be $300 to $500 million. And so that's the initial sort of money they're going to have to put up somehow to get it going. After that, these developers and others are going to put in a bunch of things and help them pay for it. But we want to know how that hump is going to be overcome. In response to our lawsuit, they sent out a news release, and they said this, which brought up more questions for us. SDSU invested approximately $1.575 million for work done by consultants and partners during the January 17th, 2017 to October 2018 period toward a comprehensive site plan. And they said no tuition, no state appropriation, no student fee dollars were used in that. These costs were budgeted as part of full redevelopment or pre-development cost. When we asked where did the money come from if they weren't part of these other funds, and they said the approximately $1.575 million will be recouped as part of the $300 million in initial estimated costs, which is them saying we got the money from the future.
Yeah.
And so,
but we still don't know where that money from the future is coming from
exactly.
either. And to be clear, we don't. It has been conveyed to us that these documents exist. This is not a dispute where somebody's saying, I don't know what you're talking about. There was no email sent on January 3rd or whatever. This is somebody told us about a document. We asked to see that document.
Right. So they haven't said we have no responsive documents, which is a perfectly acceptable response to a public records request.
And so for all we know, there will be this very clear pro forma that lays out how not only is this a perfectly financially coherent plan, but it may be the greatest plan in the history of public agencies. And in fact, maybe it will spin off so much revenue that SDSU will allow every student to go to school for free into the perpetual future. Maybe everyone gets a raise to $1 billion salary and no one ever has to pay money to go there again because of this shrewd real estate deal that they've put together. We will write the most glowing article imaginable if that is what is revealed in the document. But we need to see the freaking document.
So what they've done is, in many cases here, they hired a lawyer, and the lawyer hired other contractors. And so they're saying that the lawyer, that is all attorney-client privilege. And so that's part of what we're dealing with. So stay tuned on that. We did hear today that might not be heard by the court for several months. So we're hoping to advance that a little bit further. All right, next story I'm going to hand over to Sarah.
Libby, that's you.
That is me.
Yeah.
I'm Sarah. So this is another thing involving Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez. As most of you know, we've been investigating issues of school sexual misconduct in public schools for over a year now. And one of the very first stories we ran on this issue was about a teacher at La Jolla High School, and several women who attended the school over more than a decade apart told us that they had been repeatedly groped by this teacher and been made to feel very uncomfortable. Some of them had become depressed, and it had just like become a major issue in their life. And they all said that they complained to school officials in one form or another, and that those complaints went nowhere. Another disturbing thing that we uncovered is that when we began to look into each of their cases, we discovered that the school and the district said they didn't have records of these incidents, even though the women told us that they complained. So Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez announced a bill this week. It's not completely fleshed out yet. It has what's called intent language, which is just, I intend to write a bill about this issue. And her intent is to create a new position at the school district level, or possibly at the county board of education level. And it's essentially an ombudsman who kind of oversees these complaints. And so the thinking is that you don't have to go to a teacher or a principal at your school. Especially some people have told us, they fear retaliation, or maybe my grades will suffer if I complain. And the thinking is just that this is an outside person, and they would also be able to track the progress of these complaints, follow up on them, make sure they don't just disappear into the universe, and that there would be a paper trail for each of them.
Yeah, so on the one hand, it's good 'cause so many of these stories we heard, especially that first one where they went to, a principal or something, and the principal either told them, just figure it out, or didn't really take it all the levels that he or she could have. And then, so that's good that there will be kind of an advocate that will tell them what to do, who to go to, and then marshal these cases through the process. On the other hand, it does feel like it's like a first step maybe, but it doesn't really tackle some of the most like horrific things we've uncovered, especially the ones where, some of these teachers were disciplined, the process was followed, but then they didn't. There was nothing sort of keeping them out of the classroom again. And so, whether that's something they're able to tackle or not, this doesn't necessarily get at that, right?
Well, I actually have some news on that front as well. So there's a separate bill in the legislature that they took a crack at last year. That would address some of those issues. It would require school districts to inquire anytime they're hiring somebody with the previous employer about misconduct incidents, and it would forbid confidentiality agreements, keeping these incidents secret. And so I just got news today that the Republican Senator Mike Morrell, who introduced that last year, is going to be introducing that again. And I think that he's in the midst of trying to get some Democrats on board so that it has kind of more bipartisan support this time around.
Fascinating. So direct impact from some of the investigative work that Ashley McGlone started, I guess, almost 2 years ago. Kayla Jimenez has taken over some of that work for the next few months and has already done some great work for us as we continue to explore this. Again, there's like several questions that come up about what should happen to the complaints right away. And then if there is a substantiated complaint, which we can get the documents about, what can districts do to protect future and current students from those people? We are joined in the great Voice San Diego podcast studio by Alex Pichet. He is the political reporter, and host of Politically Speaking on NBC7 San Diego, our partners, longtime friends over there. And now he's their new talent and becoming a friend of mine. I love having you here, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm excited.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been here now a couple of years, I guess?
Yeah, it was 2 years in November. I moved out here from New York City, and in a former life, I was a producer. I produced at the network for the better part of a decade, a couple different shows on Nightly, Weekend Today. I was also at WNBC for a while, and then MSNBC during the 16 campaign.
Mm-hmm. And you were a producer on Lawrence O'Donnell's show.
Yeah.
I can't speak.
Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell was my most recent post. And so that was all throughout 2016. But yeah, I don't know. I've always kind of had the itch to get in front of the camera and get out in the field and kind of mix it up. And so the great thing about San Diego is it's what they consider an owned and operated station. It's owned by Comcast directly. So it was like a department transfer. And who doesn't want to move to a area that's 70 and sunny 340 days
Apparently Manny Machado does.
Yeah,
right.
So yeah, why San Diego? It's just an opening here, or?
Well, so for a couple of reasons. NBC probably has upwards of maybe 10 markets that are considered owned and operated television stations. Mm-hmm. San Diego is one of the smaller ones. It's market 28, 29. But the one great thing about San Diego is, aside from the weather, it is this perfect confluence of local stories that bubble up into the national sphere, right? We're right along the border. So, automatically, border wall stuff. We're a military town, so anything dealing with Pendleton or stuff going on in the Pacific usually kind of comes out of here. And also, we're just happen to be on the cusp of a lot of these tightly contested congressional races. And we saw in November of 18, District 49, District 50, that's still going on. There's a lot of news that bubbles up and makes its way into the national conversation out of here. So I was really excited to get to San Diego.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. So they put you now in charge of the Politically Speaking show. Obviously, longtime host was Gene Cubison. That's quite a leap to just come. Like you said, you were behind the scenes before. Now you're very much not behind the scenes.
Very much not.
How's the show going? Are you enjoying it?
I love it. And I think, Gene, we got a chance to work together for probably about, consistently, maybe about 6 to 8 months. And they're big shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. Like, let me just go ahead and put that out there. We were doing some calculations. I think he had been a reporter at 7 for 35 years, and he had been a reporter in this market for more than 40. And Politically Speaking was his baby for the last 11. And any person in the business or in politics that I've talked to about the show, they immediately recall, some great story with Gene. And so I realize they're huge shoes to fill. But in a weird way, it's kind of the thing that this role is kind of the thing that I'm most comfortable in. And I think it's because, I was coming from The Last Word, which is very much of this kind of format where it's one host and you kind of dive into just a handful of issues over the course of an hour. This is 30 minutes, but this is something that's familiar to me, and so it's been kind of fun to connect and to localize it, and hopefully over the next few weeks you'll see my own kind of personal stamp on it, and we'll have some significant discussions.
On the other side of the break, Alex is here to place some bets on the 2020 races. We'll be choosing the most exciting ones.
Hey, this is Nate John, producer for the show. I just wanted to mention something real quick. Coming up on March 20th, we'll be hosting a live recording of the podcast. It's going to be at Whistle Stop Bar in South Park neighborhood of San Diego. You'll see Scott, Sarah, and Andy as they record the show, and there will be other Voice of San Diego reporters there as well. They'll be mingling after the show is done recording, so it's a really good chance to meet everyone from Voice of San Diego and be a part of the podcast in real life. You can get tickets for this live podcast at voiceofsandiego.org/events. The event is called Brews and News, and there's a link for this in the show notes. Okay, let's get back to it.
Live in the studio is Alex Prechet. He's the host of Politically Speaking at NBC 7 San Diego, and he's going to help us pick some of the most exciting races. Yes. All right, here's the deal. We have $100 each.
Mythically.
No, it's whatever.
Okay.
It's 100 voice dollars.
Yeah. Voice dollars.
I have
them
cataloged here.
Mm-hmm. Neil Morgan's face is on the dollar.
Yes. And so if there's what we're going to do is go through races, and each person here is going to bid on races. And if you get the
2020 political races.
Yeah, 2020 races. And if you get the race, we're going to bring you, Alex, back within the next year. And we're going to check on which races actually prevailed as the most interesting of these races, right? And we have 4 tiers of races based on what we think are probably favorites to be the most interesting races. But you're incentivized here to choose the lower tier races because they'll pay off better at the end. Does that make sense a little bit? So we're going to start with the race.
Yeah. The theory being that the favorite to be the most interesting and viewed race will be the mayor's race. So to sort of level the playing field so that everybody is kind of has a good reason to bid on all the races, we've added in some of these runs that may not be quite as may not be expected to be quite as interesting.
Now, by interesting, I think there's 3 factors, okay? Interesting is tight, like there's actual like competitive questions, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody is obviously going to win or it's so clear they are, that hurts that measurement. The second measurement, I think, is drama, as far as like, will it actually, are there big plot line changes? Is there revelations about the candidate? Are there changes on the ground within the political system that make it interesting and important, that happen within that jurisdiction? So that's the second issue. And then the third issue is like amount of outside interest, right? People trying to influence it who aren't necessarily part of the constituency or the actual normal game. Fair enough? Those 3 factors?
Sounds good.
All right, so we are going to start at the bottom tier. Remember, you have $100. I will be keeping track of everybody's deductions from their tally. We will bid against each other, and we're going to start with the 77th Assembly District. Okay, this is Brian Mainshine's seat. Remember, he ran against Sunday Gover in the 2018 election. He barely won by like 600 votes or something. He then, to all of our surprise over the last few months, decided to switch, became a Democrat, and ostensibly because they said to him, if you don't become a Democrat, we're going to not hold back anything this next time, try to get you out of there.
And so now it's the Republicans who have no reason to hold back.
Right. Now it sounds like Republicans are going to go after him. Sunday Gover might still try again. No reason that she won't be trying to primary him. But we'll see. All right, who wants to bid on the 77th Assembly District?
I'll open the bid at $5 there.
$5. We got $5 on 77th Assembly District.
I'm going to go $10.
Wow, Sarah takes a 10. $10 going once.
These are increments of 5.
You
can have to, whatever you want.
You can move
There's a min
slow.
raise of like 1 or 2, right?
Yeah, we're not doing cents.
Yeah, 10.50.
I'll hop in and go 12.
Wow. All right, we've got Alex at 12.
I'll go 14.
14.
I'll go up to 14
Wow.
for 77.
Andy. All right, $14 going once, going twice. All right, the 77th Assembly District goes to Andy. Congratulations. Tell us why you're interested in that.
I think it could be a very crowded race. I think it's a bet that that Mainshine will get at the very least a stiff challenge from the right. Probably somebody who's gonna have an easy campaign to run. I think as a turncoat that has worked against Nathan Fletcher in the past.
Turncoat is a term.
Yeah,
It was actually
a
called
term
a
used against
turncoat.
him.
That's true.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I think that'll be the basis of a campaign. I wouldn't be surprised if Sunday Gover does get in, or somebody considerably to his left, not necessarily in the center there. And I just think there's a lot in that soup.
My question here is because it seems like whenever Mainshine changed parties, you asked any Democrat in the assembly, and nobody was terribly surprised. There was also that photo op with Lorena Gonzalez, where they seemed to really kind of rally around him and embrace this. It seems like he very much has the support of of Dems, and so. I mean, even if there is a candidate from the other side, I mean, you think there's enough there to?
I think there would be enough there to make it interesting in the primary and to make it harder for him to run the straightforward campaign that he wants. I don't think that there would be. I would be deeply surprised if a challenger to his left somehow vaulted him. I don't think he would lose in that way, but I think it would. I'm mostly gambling on intrigue here and the likelihood of just another contender getting in the mix.
So what I'm excited for in this race is that this ended up being an exciting race last time around, right? It ended up being really close. Sunday Gover had no resources, and she mounted like a really close challenge, and yet Brian Mainstein was like radio silent. I don't know that he appeared anywhere. I don't know that he campaigned anywhere. I don't recall him doing a single thing.
There's a lot of money in mailers.
Race.
Yeah.
And so it seems like he's got to explain himself. He's got to defend this incredible change that he made. And so just like to see him out there, no matter who challenges him and no matter what happens, like it will be weird to see him like really out there.
Yeah. All right, we got to go through these a little bit faster, I think. That was good, though. I like this. All right, the 50th Congressional District, Duncan Hunter Jr. is still cooking, still going through his motions. He has no committee assignments and such. But he has already an opponent, Mark Camp-Najjar. There's other candidates from the right that have stepped up a little bit, right? Do you have something to add?
No, I love getting his congressional newsletter, which is just like, everything's fine. Here's some meetings I attended. Things are going as planned.
Yeah. All right, I'm open the bidding. Anyone in on the 50th Congressional District?
Well, so before, roughly how many of these races, because I need to, if I'm setting a budget.
Sorry, yes, there are 12.
12.
Yes.
Okay. Enough for us to have 3 each.
Yeah, we will probably be talking for 3 days. So.
Okay. 12. All right. So 50th Congressional District. I'll start at 5.
5. All right.
I'm going 15. I'm in.
Nobody. 15.
20.
20.
22.
22. All right. 22. Going once. That's a lot. That's a good one.
24.
24. Sarah going once.
25.
25.
Can't do it.
All right. Alex gets it for $25. Fantastic.
Winner, chicken dinner.
All right. That's one you're going to keep your eye on then, huh?
Yes. Right.
Well,
that's one. So it's one that we focused on this past go around, and I think there's just so many layers with how that's unfolding. I mean, obviously, you have the trial that's coming up in September. Amar's already jumped back in. He redeclared super early.
Yeah, like 14 minutes after.
Super. And I think he's going to get a lot of more. The support that Mike Levin got in District 49 is the same support that Amar is probably going to have this go around. And I think it's one of the things that he struggled with in November is having that national support. So, I think it's going to be a really fascinating race.
All right. Moving on. We're moving up a tier, Tier 3. This one pays $60.
If it qualifies for the completely subjective determination of having been more interesting than the other.
Shut up. All right. This is the 49th Congressional District. This is the seat Mike Levin won rather convincingly against his Republican opponent in 2018. We have no news on anyone running against him yet, so it's a flyer now, but we've heard, of course, that Kristen Gaspar, the county supervisor, may consider it. She's obviously made a lot of noise about running or about supporting the president on some controversial issues, which makes the national discussion something she obviously is more interested in some ways. All right, I'm going to open the bid at $10 for that. I'm going to start with 10.
I'll go to 12.
We had 12. I'm going to go to 18.
Wow.
Going once.
Count them off. Once.
Twice. All right.
Sold.
I got 18. Okay, here's why. I do think Gaspar is going to get into that.
Oh, you do? Okay.
And so I think that'll just be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think so too. I think 49th is one, and this is kind of true in both 50th and 77th as well, is that it'll bear watching. Like, it's kind of taken as conventional wisdom that the trend that we've been seeing in San Diego politics, where districts move from toss-up to solidly blue, or from red to toss-up in a relatively consistent manner, that may continue unabated for a while, but it also may not, or there may be hiccups in one election cycle where it doesn't quite play out that way. And I think 49th would be an interesting bellwether for that, in that, like, Levin beat Harkey by, what was it, like almost 10 points or something?
Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, it ended up not even being a close race at all. And so it's easy to take from that, oh, well, this is just now a very safe blue seat. But it's worth remembering that, like, Scott Peters' seat was considered like the toss-up of all toss-ups back in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, we might be getting ahead of ourselves the extent to which that longtime Republican district is now safely blue.
Let me ask you, why do you think Kristen Gaspar would do better in 2020 than she did in 18?
I don't know that she would. I think the only way is if there is a surge of pro-Trump enthusiasm, and that she somehow rides that in a way that, like, 2016 sort of surprised us, right? And I'm not sure that's true, but I do think that she's positioned herself to ride it if the wave comes.
Well, or a waning of anti-Trump enthusiasm, which, like, the presumption is that midterms are less good to Democrats and presidentials are more good to them. But maybe that just won't hold true here. Maybe 2020 or 2018 was the high water mark of anti-Trump reaction, and that it's hard to just ride that level of enthusiasm for 4 years, and so you actually see it dampen down into.
Or, I mean, 2018 was very much about Trump. It was all about Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I think even if it was still all about Trump, having Mike Levin face off against, probably a better candidate than Diane Harkey would still be interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true, too.
That's part of what
also, boy, I was thinking back about her hose off at the depot comments.
Oh, man.
That was
one of the best of all time.
That was a very interesting thing to say a week before an election.
What do you expect us to do? Hose off at the depot? All right, we've moved up a tier.
We got one more.
We got one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we're at the still tier 3, the Democratic presidential primary. Now, this year, reason we're talking about some of these races so early is that the California primary is in March of 2020, which is then it's just about a year away. And thus, people are already starting to talk about the presidential primary. The Democrats are going to come to the state. Ostensibly, it'll be a more influential state in the primary system. And, Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, all these folks are going to fight it out. So who wants to start on that? Do you have anything?
No, go for it.
All right. So who wants to open the bid?
$20.
$20. Big opening bid.
Yeah, I'll go $30.
Woo!
All right.
Wow.
It is a good bet. It's a low tier, but it's probably going to be fun. Mm-hmm. So you said 30?
Yeah, we have a California candidate in the race for once.
I mean, like, I think ballots will be in people's mailboxes, like, before South Carolina.
Right.
Before New Hampshire.
It's nuts.
Right. All right.
It's crazy.
30?
I'll go 31.
31?
35.
35?
40.
40?
Oh. Wow.
$40 going once, going twice. Sold $40. My goodness. All right, Andy is in. Do you have a favorite that you think? Not that you
No,
prefer.
and in fact, that's exactly why I like it, because I mean, so like the lowest hanging fruit of analysis would be that Kamala Harris, by virtue of being from California, would be a favorite.
Yeah,
and that seems as true as anything else. But again, it's like if it's a 15-person field,
right,
and riding,
even if it's only 5 at that point,
and it's not going to be 5 at that point. There won't be many dropouts at all. But because the ballot printing is like around Iowa, like you could, even if they drop, even if somebody gets like no votes in Iowa, and they want to drop out of the race, they'll already be on the ballots in California.
To put this in perspective, so I mean, we're talking about even whenever it comes to support from Californian congressional representatives. Mike Levin, I mean, obviously, he has a relationship with Senator Harris, but Bernie Sanders was here stomping for him during the. He's got a close relationship with Elizabeth Warren. I mean, there are so many connectors, and it's not just. I mean, you extrapolate that to Peters and Davis. I think it's really, really going to be fascinating how California plays.
I should have bid on that one, huh?
Yeah. And if like in 2016, the California Democratic presidential primary mattered for the first time in a long time, that Bernie had kept it a race just long enough. And if you remember, it was kind of thought of that if he had somehow managed to pull that off, that this would be very much a wide open nomination at that point. And he got trounced.
Yeah.
Like Hillary annihilated him. And so I don't know. I think that the state is probably pretty. It's kind of just hard to handicap, and so a hard to handicap state in a wide open field seems ripe for intrigue.
All right, we move up the tier. We're into District 7 of the San Diego City Council. It's funny that we had that ranked higher than the Democratic presidential primary.
Hysterical to me, and in fact, I identified that as a information asymmetry, and I exploited it as part of my investment strategy.
Beautiful, very impressive. All right, District 7 says the seat Scott Sherman has, and he will be vacating it. Again, the primary is in March, but the general will be after that in November. So several candidates have thrown in. We have Wendy Wheatcraft, who's running for that seat. She's a firearms regulation advocate. She's also a teacher. We have Kevin Beiser, who's made noise about running. He's a school board member. Justin DeCesar.
Yeah, he ran in 2016 against Scott Sherman. Open seat this time around.
Noli Zosa, the Republican. It sounds like one of the few Republicans running right now.
Yeah, he's the only one who's announced so far. And I talked to him when he told me he was running. He had some interesting things to say, that Republicans need to spend more time talking about how to make people's lives better and less time talking about tax rates, which is interesting. And then Raul Campillo is a city attorney.
Okay.
And then you mentioned Wendy.
All right. I'm going to open the bid at $20.
$20.
I feel like I should bid just because I have $100, but I don't want to.
Fair enough. I think some of these late ones are going to go for a high price. All right. Looks like I got it. Going once, going twice.
Yeah.
That was an easy one to nail down. All right. District.
I mean, I want a lot. I want all of these, but I only have space on my lineup for three races.
Yeah. All right. That's why I'm trying to nail some down. All right.
Yeah.
I think that was a good buy, actually. $20 for that. All right. D5.
I would just say that like D7 is really got a lot riding on it for the Republican Party in this city.
Absolutely.
Like it's a 6-3 majority right now. Those seem pretty safe. D7 has never gone to a November election, so we've not yet really. We don't really have any data points for how Democrats do in November elections.
No, April Bowling versus Marty Emerald.
Yeah, I guess it
November
was a pretty
08.
different. It was a different district at that point.
Yeah.
And so and if they can't win there, then it's like, what is the Republican Party on the city council at this point if they can't win seats like D7?
Well, that brings you to D5, which is the most Republican district, and the governor Gavin Newsom won that district by several points, so it's very close, and the Democrats smell an opportunity there. But if one district remains Republican, it will be District 5. There is two Republicans sort of floating around the idea. One of them is all-in Joe Leventhal, but he is actually prohibited from spending money or raising money in the race until September. So he'll have to just use earned media like this to get his name out. And the other Republican running or thinking about is T.J. Zane, and he's a well-known a person in the Republican Party, but also a current school board member in Poway, the Poway Unified School District. We also have heard of a city attorney candidate who's thinking about running. All right, the two Democrats running are Marnie von Wilpert. She's a deputy city attorney, and Hugh Rothman, who's a member of the Democratic Party's Central Committee. So we'll see how much energy and resources they muster for this fight, but I think that even the rivalry on the right will be interesting. I'm going to open the bidding at $5 for that one.
I'll go $7.
$7. Anyone want to go higher?
I'm good for 10.
10.
Why not?
$12.
15.
$17.
$17 for Sarah. Going once. Twice. Sarah gets it at $17. D5. Fascinating. All right. District 1 of the San Diego City Council. This is the seat Barbara Bry is not going to stay in after her decision to run for mayor. Represents La Jolla, Carmel Valley, those northern parts of the coastal area of the city. And we have a bunch of Democrats running so far. I haven't heard of a Republican running. Have you?
No, not yet.
Yeah, so that was often considered a sort of a split seat. Seems like it's
Hotly contested the last 2 times it was up.
right.
So yeah, that's if that you couldn't even get a good Republican candidate, I think it speaks to where that district is going.
Right. So so Barbara Bry, actually, it was hotly
It
contested
was
in
like
the primary
it
last
wasn't
time.
hotly contested last time.
Well,
yeah.
that's
Ray,
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ray Elliott decided to bow out of the actual
Yeah.
runoff.
It was hotly contested in the primary.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
All right. So we have firefighter Aaron Brennan running, a lawyer named Will Moore.
And Joe LaCava, who ran last time around and dropped out early, and has decided that he's going to make another run. So, well-known community planner in the area.
All right. Who wants to open that bidding?
We'll open that at $5.
I'll go 7.
I don't want to bid on that one.
All right, count it off to Alex for
Alex
7.
gets
Going once,
D1.
twice, 3 times. I mean, it's a crazy district.
It is.
It's like that's like the hotbed of Airbnb
Yeah.
and scooters and all that stuff.
All right. Fascinating. That'll be interesting to watch. All right. District 3, San Diego City Council, Chris Ward. Obviously, he's only been in there 1 term, but he's excited to move back to Sacramento and try to take Todd Gloria's assembly seat. Todd Gloria, of course, running for mayor. And so it's open. We have all kinds of interesting candidates. Obviously, it's hard to picture a Republican ever winning that seat. It's got to be the most Democratic district or the second most.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fiercely Democratic district, the uptown area, also downtown. And so who do we have running?
So Chris Olson, who's a policy analyst for the IBA, Independent Budget Analyst's office, has decided to run. So you would presume he'd be somebody who knows quite a bit about city finances and that sort of thing.
Steve Whitburn, he ran against Todd Gloria in 2008 and
2008.
lost.
And I think he was considered a favorite in 2008 when he lost to Todd. Is that fair?
I don't remember that. I remember it was fierce. It was an intense fight.
Intense. And then there's been a bunch of other rumored candidates. None have emerged quite yet, but maybe most notably at this point, Stephen Russell, who runs the Affordable Housing Federation. He would also presumably have a lot riding on a potential housing-related ballot measure on the 2020 ballot. So, but understanding is he's still thinking about it. So it would be potentially those 2, maybe 3, maybe others emerge as well. Probably another district where it's not worth spending much time contemplating a Republican deciding to run.
I'm going to open at $11. I think that it has D3 always has the potential of being fascinating.
Yeah, remember in 2016 how kind of messy it got with Chris Ward running against Anthony Bernal?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I do.
I'm gonna go $15.
15 to Sarah. $15. Oh, I don't know if I want to stretch more. I'll do 16.
$20.
$20. Going
Big
once.
spender.
All right.
Going twice. Sarah buys it at 20. Nice work. All right. Now we move up a tier. We are these are the top 4 races we think are going to be most interesting. Let's start with District 2.
I just realized how messed up these tiers are.
It's fine.
This is
District 2.
one of these that should be in the lowest tier.
That's fine. It could be interesting. District 2 of the County Board of Supervisors, now held by Diane Jacob. We just heard Poway Mayor Steve Voss has decided to run. Obviously, Joel Anderson was always considered the candidate from the right on this one. And then, of course, there's these perennial rumors that Tom Lemon, one of the top labor leaders in San Diego, is considering this also, which would, it's hard to picture that seat going to a Democrat, but he's as high profile among the Dems as possible. I think this is going to be a fascinating race. The supervisors are now the top of San Diego's political discussion. I'm going to put $20 to start on that one. Did I buy it?
I think you
It's
might
yours,
have bought
bud.
it. Yeah. But I think, so you alluded to something there at the end that Dan Rottenstreich, I was on a panel with him right after the election, that he said that something his eye is on now is whether the County Board of Supervisors could, in the next few years, become the most watched political body as opposed to what has traditionally been the San Diego City Council. That if the supervisors get more active and decide to be more involved, that by virtue of their budget and the number of people they represent, that it could be them and not the city council that generates the most media attention.
I think that's true even if they don't spend a lot more money or do a lot more things. It's just the fact that it's even in play makes it interesting, whereas before it really was kind of
just
like a
well,
non-issue.
Yeah, it's like these guys have been here for 20 years and they're always going to
keep
be
being here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. So, we got the last three races here. I have, I'm not happy with my purchases so far. I don't know what I was thinking. $58. So that means I have 42 left. You've got some left. Everybody's got some left. Let's move this into District 1. This is going to be a fierce race. I don't think this is controversial at all. District 1 of the County Board of Supervisors. This is the South Bay District, currently held by Greg Cox, a Republican. But several Democrats have already jumped in. Rafael Castellanos is collecting endorsements. There's Nora Vargas. She's interested in this. She's obviously thrown in on this race. Ben Hueso's still circling around whether he's going to. David Alvarez, a former city councilman, is still thinking about it. David Bejarano, former chief of police in Chula Vista.
With Hueso, is it that he filed, it's just not district specific yet, or
He opened a committee. He opened a committee and hasn't necessarily committed to operating that committee as an active
there's
campaign.
an uncommitted committee?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very well put. Yes. So that'll be a fierce race no matter what. Obviously, South Bay Democratic contests are always interesting. Who wants to start that?
I would open that at 15.
15. It's a big opening bid. I'm going to go at 19. No.
No, you can take it. Yeah.
19? I got that for 19.
Yeah.
That's a
great.
good deal.
That's good
That
value.
is.
All right. These last two, these should go high. District 3 of the County Board of Supervisors. This is the seat held by Kristen Gaspar. We've already heard of several candidates interested in that. Olga Diaz, full disclosure, she's a member of our board of directors. We'll have to iron that out. And she's in. Tara Reamer, she's also in. There's a few other potential candidates. Who wants to lead on that?
I'll bid for $46.
46.
Wow.
His remaining
Coming in hot.
total. Anybody want to challenge that?
Yes.
Oh my.
$47.
All right.
That
No,
means
I can't match that bid.
Sarah gets it. 47.
I had to make a calculation, and I made it.
All right. Well, let's talk about this. Alex, you've had a chance to talk about some of the mayors and talk about some of the mayors, some of the mayoral candidates.
Yeah.
What is
All
your
6 mayors.
what has been your impression so far?
Well, it's a fascinating race for a variety of aspects, right? Because, Barbara Bree getting involved early and also getting a congressional endorsement this past week, which is huge. And then, I think it didn't shock anybody that Assemblymember Todd Gloria was going to enter this race. And I think for all intents and purposes, he probably is the favorite right now. I think it was fascinating that we saw that move from Congressman Peters not to get into the race.
Yeah.
Also, former police chief Shelley Zimmerman, whose name had been floated out there as someone else who could do very well in this field, potentially, who is now removed from that. And so, two things kind of come to mind right now. Is how do Bree and Gloria match up with each other? And then you have Corey Briggs, who's floating out here, and that's going to stir some stuff up. But then also, the San Diego GOP is going to have some candidate. So
Are they?
I think they have to.
I keep wondering who, though.
Somebody will get in.
I think the party has to. I think he's right that
Yeah.
the party has to. But the question would be whether like they get the full-throated support of the traditionally right-aligned business groups.
Yeah.
Or so you might have a situation where you've got a nominally Republican candidate who gets the endorsement and is on the ballot, but doesn't get much support from the Chamber of Commerce or the Lincoln Club.
Right. And so I think that I was talking to Dan McAllister on the plane home from Sacramento, the treasurer tax collector. I'm like, hey, you should do it, man. Let's see it. He didn't think that was wild. We'll see if somebody like that pops up. All right. I think, Alex, you have the most money remaining.
Should I just go
Are
ahead
you
and
going to put it all on there?
I mean,
What
you
else
can't-
is there
you
to
can't
do?
take it to the grave, right?
All right.
Can't take it
Alex,
with you. These
Alex-
imaginary dollars need to be spent.
All right. Alex gets the mayor's race. Alex, thank you so much
That
for...
was anticlimactic. But
Sorry.
well played by Alex.
Very well done. All right, Alex. Thanks. We love the show. Obviously, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. This is a
and,
blast.
We'll make this more regular. Appreciate it.
Welcome to The People's Reporter, a Voice of San Diego feature where we gather questions from listeners like you, then answer those questions. I'm Lisa Halberstad.
And I'm Nate John.
My name is Donna Regalado. I live in the Bayho section of Claremont. I've been wondering how many people who live in downtown San Diego also work downtown, and how many people who live downtown travel elsewhere to get to their jobs.
So that's kind of an interesting question right now. There's lots of talk in San Diego about expanding transit and the overall state of downtown. Transit being especially important because if people have access to transit, they don't have to use cars as much. So that means it's more affordable to get around, theoretically.
And perhaps more crucially, less car pollution, which is
Yeah.
a big component of the city's climate action plan. It holds the city to some pretty big goals to reduce car commuting.
Right, so those are all kind of important goals. So what were you able to find on that for people who live and work downtown?
Well, the short answer is not very many people live and work downtown.
Okay.
Yeah, back in 2016, a business group called the Downtown San Diego Partnership asked UCSD Extension to help them get a better handle on who lives and works downtown. They dug into what Donna was asking about.
So that's very lucky for Donna. What did UCSD find?
They found that 80% of working people who live downtown leave to go to work.
Okay.
Basically, most people who live downtown were commuting to neighborhoods like Kearny Mesa or Mission Valley.
I guess that kind of makes sense because there are so many jobs in those areas. But also downtown is a very dense place. I'd expect there to be a lot of jobs there, too. So I guess that gets at the other part of Donna's question of how many jobs are there downtown and how many of those jobs are actually done by the people who live there, too.
Right. So the study found that at the time, there were about 81,000 jobs downtown.
Okay.
And of those, just about 3,000 were held by people who also live downtown. That's less than 4%.
Yeah, that's very small. So, okay, so less than 4% of the jobs are actually done by people there. Do we have any sense that that could be changing? Because it does actually sound pretty ideal to be able to live and work in one area, and that could definitely help the city make progress with policies that are encouraging that type of thing, too.
Well, San Diego leaders and economic development types are really hoping for the best here. I will say business leaders are pretty jazzed about a plan to turn the Horton Plaza Shopping Center, which is a pretty big chunk of central land downtown, into an office and retail space. They are hoping to lure tech companies. And UCSD is set to open a satellite campus in East Village in a couple years.
Wow, that's a lot of big plots of land for a lot of things downtown. So the idea is that if those big developments actually do happen, it'll lure people to this downtown lifestyle that hasn't quite happened yet, I guess. So I suppose we'll find out whether those actually make a difference in the next few years.
We sure will. And for the record, regional planners are projecting downtown will gain tens of thousands more jobs by 2050.
Okay.
Obviously, 2050 is quite a ways away. For now, those projections are pretty rosy. After all, the most recent big tech company announcements have been about companies locating or expanding in other parts of San Diego, like Apple coming to University City.
Right. Okay. So, listeners, there is your answer, and we know that you have questions to come alongside them. You can ask us anything you've been wondering about San Diego. We'll collect the best questions, then ask you to vote for your favorites. And then, Voice of San Diego will investigate and share what we've learned.
So, if you want to suggest a question, go to voiceofsandiego.org/peoplesreporter. And your question could be featured in an upcoming episode. We might talk about what you asked.
All right, thanks for listening to the Voice of San Diego podcast. To keep up with all our political coverage, make sure you check out our politics report. Andy and I do that every week, and Sarah has a weekly newsletter you should check out. It's What We Learned This Week. Get those at voiceofsandiego.org/newsletters. I'm Scott Lewis, CEO and editor-in-chief at Voice. Andy Keats is the assistant editor. Sarah Libby's managing editor, and the show is produced by Nate John and Adriana Heldes. We'll talk to you next week.